any big event involves a lot of people, and you cannot necessarily judge on the trigger or even reason or the culprit of any big event. Like most likely it doesn't have a single reason. That's kind of my point. Greetings, this is Eugene the Philosopher, the greatest living philosopher after the unfortunate passing of Quentin Robert de Nameland, who has been the greatest living philosopher before me. Let's talk about big events, and in particular, like how we can try to deconstruct them, to pinpoint their, let's say, triggers or reasons for them to happen, etc., etc. And here I shall propose what I would call an avalanche model. I haven't really got any better analogy for this other than avalanche, but whatever. So, my point is that, that's kind of the main point of this video actually, is that in any big event, there are many people involved, alright? This is almost a tautology, which is again a staple of this channel. So, what do I mean by that? Well, it's almost by definition, right? A big event is an event that involves a lot of people, or not a lot of people, but there are powerful people, or like powerful interested parties, etc., etc., right? But more specifically, what do I mean by this? Is that, well, again, let's talk about the avalanche model. Maybe it would be clearer from this, alright? So what is an avalanche? It's like a bunch of snow that's falling down the mountain, right? And it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and it takes all stuff that it encounters pretty much with it, right? So you can encounter all kinds of stuff, like animals, perhaps alive or dead, like rubble, like, I don't know, trees, like remnants of somebody's house. All kinds of stuff just falls with the snow, and it just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. So this is kind of my model for any big event, really is. That's probably excessive is there. In any big event, all kinds of things just kind of align themselves together and just kind of turn into this huge, well, avalanche, right? So why is this model useful for understanding of big events? Well, because, again, sometimes we are very tempted to, like, ascribe a big event to some single power, let's say, which apparently caused it, like, especially, again, conspiracy theorists are big on this, right? Like, the Jews are causing the global warming or whatever, like, I don't know, like, the NASA is tricking us by inventing space, like it's all CGI. I mean, whatever you can think of, like, whatever big event there is, we may invent an agency that would supposedly have caused it, right? Or something to that effect. Well, an avalanche model shows that even if it appears that there is such an agency, well, there not necessarily is such an agency, if you know what I mean. So there may be a trigger of an event, like an avalanche again, like maybe somebody just like clicked their hand, like clicked their fingers like this, right? An avalanche just started just because, well, because really what the reason for an avalanche is there's too much snow, right? For the mountain to handle, and it just kind of slides downwards. And the trigger could be literally anything, like literally any loud noise, or like a thunderstorm, or like, well, it's unlikely probably. Well, you know what I mean, right? Any insignificant event. Like look at World War I, for example, right? The assassination of Franz Ferdinand became a trigger of World War I. But can you say that it was a reason for World War I? Well, of course not. I mean, the reason was the accumulation of snow, you know? There were like very complicated power balance in Europe. And like balance is in thick air quotes, you know, it could have been disrupted by anything, and the assassination became this anything, became this click of fingers, or, you know, that precipitated the avalanche. But the avalanche itself, the World War I, that is, like, it's based not on the assassination, right? It's based on just like the alignment of political interests, if you wish. So in a way, everyone wanted this war. Everyone agreed to have a war, right? Everyone jumped into this avalanche and kind of slid and slided together downwards, right? Something like that. So my idea is exactly that with any big event, pretty much this is what's happening. Like, it's big exactly because many people agree that this should be the case, that this is something reasonable, this should happen. So in a way, like, again, not necessarily like people like voluntarily agree, but they, you know, maybe convinced to agree by various factors, right? By various, let's say, administrative instruments, like we remember Corona thing, right? Corona can also be described by an avalanche model, like some idiot deliberately or not released this virus from the lab, and then we know what happened, right? Everyone jumped onto the avalanche. So now you can claim, oh, it was the Jews that created the virus to destroy the true Aryans, or you may claim, oh, it was the evil Ukrainians trying to poison the Russians, it was evil Chinese trying to, I don't know, do whatever, it was evil Bill Gates trying to sell vaccines, like, whatever, like, I mean, there are certainly, all of these parties are certainly interested in Corona. Again, otherwise it wouldn't have happened in this avalanche type of way in the first place, right? But to claim that any of these parties is responsible, I would say is, well, a little bit far-fetched, to say the least. It's a long shot. So, again, so the trigger might be even accidental, right? It's not necessarily an event that was like carefully planned and like, you know, somebody was conspiring to do it or whatever the hell. It could have, again, happened by accident, like literally. So many big events actually happened by accident. Unfortunately, I can't think of any example here, but you see my point, right? The thing is that the avalanche wouldn't start unless many people would be interested in it, right? Well, in the avalanche model proper, like many people would be the snow, right? Like this sort of ambient, all-present being, right? Well, in our case, it's like the society, right? The groups of power in the society, the groups of interests, and all kinds of things like that. So, hopefully you see my idea, right? It's, well, again, I'll just briefly repeat the main idea, is that any big event involves a lot of people, and you cannot necessarily judge on the trigger or even reason or the culprit of any big event. Like most likely it doesn't have a single reason. That's kind of my point. Exactly because many people are jumping onto the bandwagon almost immediately, and that's why event becomes big. So these people were already kind of prepared in some way. Like they wanted it, or they were expecting it, or blah, blah, blah. Right? So that's what happens. And this is why I think avalanche model is useful in describing these sorts of big events. Right? I was thinking about calling it like a fire model, right? But it kind of sounds stupid. But I mean, the fire, like, you know, you like fire a match and like drop it somewhere in your apartment, and then suddenly like the whole building is on fire, right? So it's kind of also kind of like an avalanche, right? So the trigger was your match, but the thing is that the house was already ready, you know, to be burned, like had all kinds of flammable materials inside of it. So they've all agreed to be set on flame, right? But it's kind of stupid, right? But the idea is the same essentially. So you might call it arson model or fire model, I don't know. But I like avalanche model more. I think it's more kind of more. That's just better. Thank you for watching. The eons are closing.
If you wish to support me, please consider joining my Patreon. That is patreon.com/philosopher. See the link in the description. Or if you have a scientific theory of your own and you'd like my help in developing it, please join my alternative science coaching program, also available through Patreon.